Okay, going to try and find out who's been leaving these witch totem things, and try and find out who they are and where they are. So let me just have a look. Let me just grab this dead body's hand and just take a look. Boo! The connection works both ways. Oh shit! That means she knows who we are. Yep. Let's get over here before a monster or demon comes after us. I'm with you, Lorraine. Yikes! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, or The Conjuring 3. Now, this is going to be a bit of a special review because my first ever review that I ever did was The Conjuring 2, The Enfield Case, which is the first of the films I saw from this series, and it was the second of the main series of The Conjuring series, third overall, and it was the first one I saw. This is the only other one I've watched, actually. I haven't seen the first film or the other spin-offs yet, but I hope to check them out in the future, especially the first one. But The Conjuring 2, The Enfield Case was the first review I ever did, and that was done about 5 years ago in June 2016, and now it's June 2021, and I'm reviewing the third Conjuring film and the eighth overall of the franchise, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, or The Conjuring 3, or The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. So the movie is inspired by a true life story, but like the other films, it puts a bit more of a fictional twist on it. It's a bit more made up stuff, and it's made to be more of a horror film. And in this story, paranormal and demonic investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren are trying to exorcise this demon from this 8-year-old boy called David. And it's during this exorcism of David that David's sister's boyfriend, Arnie, asks the demon to take him instead. He orders the demon to possess him instead of David. So the demon leaves David but enters Arnie, and Ed has been attacked by the demon, causing him to have heart problems. So he goes to hospital for about a month, which means that no one's able to know about the demon possessing Arnie for about a month during this time. But then the demon starts to possess Arnie and causing him problems, just like it did with David, and eventually ends up with Arnie killing somebody when having visions caused by the demon's influence over him. I say somebody, it's the guy who runs this dog shelter thing that Arnie's girlfriend works at, and also their landlord when they were staying up in the spare rooms. This leads to Ed and Lorraine having to prove that Arnie was possessed by the devil in order to argue this in court, that Arnie was possessed by the devil or a demon, and that he hadn't really got any control over his body, or much control over his body, or didn't know who he was stabbing at when he committed the killing, let's say. When investigating the case, they discover a witch's totem thing underneath the house, which was what initially possessed David, and they discovered that David and later Arnie were cursed by somebody who wanted to have them kill somebody and then kill them so that some souls would be taken by this demon. After seeking some help from a priest who did some study into such rituals, they then go and investigate another case, something pretty similar to what happened with Arnie's case. Later, Lorraine finds out that using her own special abilities, I couldn't quite understand them, but she has some sort of psychic abilities. But using those, she's able to locate whoever's doing all of this, whoever's planted these totems, and are able to find them and find out who they are and where they are. However, it turns out that this person, who turns out to be another woman, is able to sees stuff about Lorraine and Ed as well, and eventually has them cursed with a totem as well. So, of course, the film, it's a race against time to try and clear Arnie's name, try and find whoever's behind all of this demon possession, and eventually try to stop them before they can cause any more harm, especially towards them when they get possessed, when they get totem in their house. And despite being a fictional version of real life events, this is a really great story. It's a really engaging adventure, and it's pretty scary throughout quite a lot of it. Although there is the odd funny moment, like when Ed has the odd funny line, and when he smashes a bit of a window at the funeral home and opens the door and says he'll leave a letter. That was a pretty funny bit. There's a couple of a good humour in here and some pretty nice moments. But of course, it's mainly focused on being a scary movie, and it achieves that really well. We've got a new director in the seat for this film, because the first two Conjuring films were by James Wan. And I think this new director does a equally impressive job at telling this type of horror story as Wan did with the second Conjuring film. Can't comment on the first one. Can't comment on the spin-offs either, and whoever directs those films. But I think the director of this film did a really great job. I think he might have worked on one of the other ones as well. Maybe not as a director, but he definitely worked on one of the other films in some capacity. Anyway, but the new director, Michael something, he does a really great job with directing this film, and it comes across as a pretty scary film with some great jump scares and also some pretty great scary imagery. And yeah, it definitely feels like a follow-up to the second film. I can't comment on the first one, but as a follow-up to the second film, yep, definitely feels a lot like it, even though it's under another director, and it works really well. As mentioned, it's a pretty engaging story, and I thought the characters were handled, both the fictionalized versions of the original ones, of the real-life characters, and also fictional characters created especially for this story. I thought they were all handled really well. Arnie's a compelling character, and we're worried about what's going to happen to him as he's having all this shit done to him. Same with David, the little boy, and also David's sister and Arnie's girlfriend, who's also a pretty sweet character. We do have this other character. I'm not sure how much he is involved with Ed and Lorraine, or with Arnie and his girlfriend and her family, but he's definitely a good character in the scenes we get. I don't think we get as much time with him or as much to know about him, so it is a bit of a shame that we don't get much of him in the film. If you've seen the film, it's the character who finds this book about Latin and stuff later on in the film. I'll get to main characters in a moment, but our villain is a pretty I don't know if I would say interesting, but she's a pretty creepy villain. She's quite creepy in her own sense, causing visions for characters and trying to get said characters to commit murders and then kill themselves. So it's a murder then suicide sort of a situation, which is what happened with the two girls that Ed and Lorraine go and discover is a similar case to what's happening with Arnie. And there's a bit of a good backstory about how the character got involved in this, but it's not really touched on too much. It comes to more of a twist later on about what the character is in relation to a character that our main characters have talked to at an earlier point in the film. But she's definitely a pretty effective and creepy villain in her scenes, and definitely very strong human villain. I'm not so sure I don't know if there was human villains in the first film. The second film, no, it was definitely very much demons and poltergeists in that one, and I can't comment for the spin-offs, but this time around we've got a human villain in league with a demon, and getting this demon to kill possess people to kill and then commit suicide. And I thought they were a pretty strong villain. Apart from that, the backstory could have been a little bit more expanded upon. We find out a connection about them and another character, but we could have a bit more backstory about them and their interest in reading about the occult and being a demonist summoner or whatever. And as well as also motive. That's another thing. They lack motive for why they choose these specific people curse and try to kill. Um, I don't. I mean, apart from Ed and Lorraine, of course, because they're investigating and they're getting in the way, etc. That makes sense. But why they try to possess David and also one of the girls, Jessica, I believe, or she's the victim. Um, why they chose those people, I don't really know. Arnie got possessed because he offered to take the demon out of David, and so it went into him. That makes sense as well. But why David was possessed in the first place and why the other girl was possessed in the first place, I don't know. I don't. We never really got the motives behind this woman's summoning of the demons and having these people possessed and then kill somebody and then commit suicide. It didn't really. They didn't really explain that. That is my that's my main criticism of this character, and also probably the movie, that they don't really have a motive apart from cause shit and fuck people's lives up. But that's really about it. For Ed and Lorraine, it made sense, and sort of for Arnie, it made sense, but it doesn't make sense why they wanted to get rid of David and the other girl. So yeah, they lack motive for that. At least in the second film, the motives behind the poltergeist was that it was his house, and he wanted people kicking out, he wanted to kick people out of it because it belonged to him. And the nun demon that was in that film was a demon. They like to cause shit for people. They like to kill people and take them to hell, or steal spirit souls or something, or to cause trouble for people. And those motivations made sense, I suppose, especially the poltergeist guy. But in this film, I suppose the demon's motive makes sense because it's been summoned by this woman and then it's gone off to kill people, possess people, etc., etc. But with the woman herself, she doesn't really have a motive to have David and the girl possessed, unless they were just random people that just so happened to live or go to college, in university, in our Sprit's case, just in the local area. So yeah, that's my main criticism with the villain. She hasn't got a motivation, and that does kind of knock the movie down a few pegs. Is that she doesn't really have much of a proper motivation on why she wants to go after these specific people. Well, some of them anyway. And it's those people, it's the ones that don't have the motivation explained, is what kickstarts all of it. The ones that make sense, we see happen throughout the film, but the ones that we don't know about the motivation for happen beforehand. As for the main characters, Ed and Lorraine are just as great as they were in the second film, and probably the first film as well, but I haven't seen that one yet. The actors have a very strong chemistry between each other, Patrick Wilson and Vera Flanagan. They are fantastic as their characters, both in this film and the second film, and they just work so well together, and there's such great, compelling characters, and they definitely feel like I'm watching these two people on screen, not just actors playing these characters. I'm literally watching the real life people, although albeit in a fictionalized story and with more fictionalized events than what really happened. I'm still watching these real life people work all of this stuff out in this story's context, and getting on and trying to uncover the mystery, etc. I feel like I'm actually watching the real life people. A horror film should scare people, and this film does a very good job at trying to scare audiences. Yeah, there's the occasional jump scare and fake out moments, but there's some really good scares in there. There's also probably a lot of CG, but it works really well with delivering the scares and the emotional moments, and there's some pretty great impressive moments, and there's also some pretty great practicals as well in there, and it just feels like a really well executed horror film. I will say this though, there is some goofy designs revolving this this zombie-like mixture of the girl victim of the girl killer, or the girl killer herself, and also that the guy victim of Arnie when he was possessed, and the demons possessing this sort of body mixture sort of thing of 2 or 3 of the victims, and it's coming after Ed and Lorraine, and there is some goofy moments with it at the end of the second act, starts at the third. So it's a little bit goofy in there. There's a few goofy scares and stuff, but for the most part, they do a really great job in doing some really great scares and pulling off a really great scary horror film. Production values are as good as the second film. Again, even though we've had a change in director, not really much feels that much different. It feels very much similar to what the first one was like. And it flows pretty nicely and it works really well. So I applaud the production team once again, especially for some pretty great sets, such as the altar scene towards the end and in the caves. There's some really great stuff there. And the cinematography team, no stupid shaky cam, no stupid camera angles. It's a clear and concise, even in the more scary moments, even when it's a bit more fast paced. It's clear and consistent camera work. This is how you do a good horror film. No stupid shaky cam. I mean, I won't bash on found footage in this video, but when a movie doesn't need shaky cam, then don't use shaky cam, because it works so much better when you've got it still. Even if you're hand holding it, it's so much better when you try to make it a bit more still and don't shake it all over the place so people can actually see what's going on. And frankly, I'm able to see what's going on in this film. And also a credit to the editing for that as well. The editing are able to mix up stuff really nicely. And there's also a great bit towards the end where we got mixed with the scary stuff, but also some romantic, emotional moments between Ed and Lorraine. There's some good stuff there that we saw a little bit of earlier on, actually. And it's nice that they tie that into the ending as well. That's handled pretty well, both in the story and the editing points of view. So overall, The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, is another great horror film. I say another as part of this series, but I've only seen the second one at time of recording this review, but I know the first one's pretty popular and highly regarded, and it's got pretty praised reviews. And as for the spin-offs, I've heard not so many good things about some of them, but other ones have gotten some pretty good reception. So I think I can safely say this is another great installment of this series, even though it's only the second one I've seen. But when even just compared to the Enfield case, I can safely say it's a worthy follow-up. I think I would still prefer Enfield case, but I think that one really clicked with me personally. Whilst this one, I can just say, yeah, this one's quite a bit like that one, so I'm able to enjoy that, and I look forward to seeing other films in the franchise. This one didn't have to try and prove itself as much as Enfield Case had to me personally, because Enfield Case, I went in knowing nothing about this series beforehand, or even the events surrounding it, apart from the fact that there was a TV series about it with Timothy Spall in the lead role a year earlier. But that was really all I knew about that, and just kind of fell in love with that universe, even though I have unfortunately not checked out anything else apart from this recent film since then, not even any of these spin-offs when they hit cinemas, which I now kind of regret. Especially the Nun film, because that tied in with Enfield Case. I'm not sure what would be a spin-off to this film if they ever tried to do a spin-off. Then again, and one of the other spin-offs, I'm not sure how that ties in with either of the other films. But regardless, I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was a pretty great film and another great installment of this franchise. A franchise I've only seen 2 movies of so far, but hopefully I'll be able to change that. So I'll be giving The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, a 9 out of 10. It doesn't quite get a solid 10, then neither did Enfield Case. Part of this is due to the fact that the villain kind of lacks a motivation for some of the characters she's trying to possess. And some of the backstory, we could have a bit more backstory, but and also there's a couple of goofy moments where not the humorous moments I mentioned earlier, more like the goofy moments, like the demon possessing a body that's kind of made of 1 or 2 of the victims' bodies merged together. It looks pretty goofy. There might have been the odd goofy moments and or goofy design in the second film, but maybe some of the others as well. But in this film, it's kind of a bit more noticeable than it was in the second film, or at least from memory anyway. But yeah, this was still a great film and a really strong installment of the series. I say that I've only seen 2 at the moment. I apologise as I sound like a broken record by this point when talking about such a thing. But anyway, yeah, Conjuring 3, great film, worth watching. except on a Saturday night. Because, like with Doctor Sleep, I had another cinema audience which was a bit destructive. This is the second horror film now I've seen on a Saturday night, to my knowledge, and the audience giggled and sniggered and laughed throughout. And there was another one on there was someone on their phone a few points during the film. And I hate to say this, but it is mainly teenagers and young people from age 15 onwards, up until mid-20s, that are mostly like this. So people around my age or just slightly younger. And I hate to say that because I'm in that area of the age or just shortly afterwards, slightly older than it. And B, I was a teenager not that many years ago. So I hate to say this, and C, we young people aren't really looked upon in high regard from older people unless we're members of their family or good friends, or we've proven ourselves to actually be pretty nice or pretty good or well behaved, etc., etc. But basically, stereotypically, teenagers and young people aren't looked upon that nicely. So I hate to say something stereotypical against my age group, but twice I've seen a horror film on a Saturday night at the cinema, and I've had people around my age being destructive. Some adults as well in the Doctor Strange one as well, and I think that's why that screening was a bit more worse to me than this time round, because starters, I thought that film was even better than this one, and I was trying to enjoy it, but people were just being disruptive around, especially people next to me. And also, it was not just the people around my age group which was the case for this time round, but also some people who should really have known better, but yet they were almost as bad. So I think that's why this screening wasn't. I don't think I had as bad as a cinema experience this time around as when I saw Doctor Sleep, in spite of that film being an amazing film. I've done a video on this, and I'll probably do a video on Conjuring 3's one as well. In fact, I might even do it. He'll probably record it just after this, but it'll probably go out just before. But yeah, guys, don't see a horror film on a Saturday night. You won't get to. You'll probably still enjoy the film, but you'll get a pretty bad experience. And it also pains me to say that at a time when cinemas are at risk of closing or not having many people come to them due to the pandemic and also the rise of streaming services. Not to mention some of their reputations about such audiences beforehand anyway. But yeah, this is a video for another time. But as for the film was brilliant. So thank you for watching this review of The Conjuring 3, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne YouTube channel.